In martial arts, you ideally want to do this, or this, not this. And in this video, I'm going to explain why. Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria, and in this video we're going to be demonstrating why those first two cuts were better objectively from a martial arts point of view than the third cut. Yes, they all cut a water bottle, but why are they more effective in a martial arts context, and most importantly, why are they safer for you? Now, for demonstrational purposes here, I've used this beautiful kukri from Kailash Blades, and massive kudos to them for the kukris that they're making, and the ones they've sent me to review over the years. If you want to see reviews of these, check in my back catalogue. But while I've used a kukri here, this would apply to all sorts of swords and knives, and in fact even other weapons as well, like potentially axes and things like that as well. So fundamentally, there are a couple of main reasons why you want to do those first two things rather than the third. Not to say that you can't do the third, but it comes with inherent risks, which I will explain here. So first of all, there are a number of positions we can start off fighting. So you might have your weapon in front of you, or you might have it in some other position. So if you study historical swordsmanship, you'll know that there's some low down guard positions, some high up guard positions, there's guard positions off to the side, to either side, and so on and so forth. So theoretically, your weapon could be in any of these positions. It could be high up to left or right or above. It could be low down to left or right or in the middle, or it could be somewhere in the middle here. Now, when most untutored people going to fight with weapons, or at least whether they pretend to fight or really fight, they tend to intuitively stick the weapon out in front of them. Now that's an interesting thing, because actually, while that is common to some fencing systems, it's actually not often how people hold a weapon if they intend to chop. So if you look at anybody who's about to use a machete to chop some wood, or in a fight, then they tend to bring it up here, because as any old ape will tell you, if you want to hit something, this is actually the starting position of the hit. And this is the crux of the situation. If you're starting with a weapon there, most people, in order to hit, would bring the hand up here before they hit. Why don't you want to do that? Well, with the assistance of my trusty, loyal assistant Lucy, I'm going to demonstrate for you outside why you don't want to do that. So here is my lovely assistant Lucy. Now, obviously we're not going to be doing this with sharp kukris or any other kind of sharp object, so we've substituted with these bits of wood, which should serve to illustrate perfectly well. So if you come on guard, in medium guard or terse, right, so we have an assailant, an attacker. Obviously I'm the innocent one here, I'm just defending myself. And here's the attacker in front of me with a knife pointing towards me. Now, at this point, obviously I've had to compress the distance to get into shot here, but normally we'd be a bit further away. So, one of the main threats here, in fact, the biggest threat, the most dangerous threat, is that point. And it's pointing towards me. So that's actually a really good position for someone to be standing in front of me with any type of pointy implement to keep me away. However, if Lucy raises her hand up like this in order to give a cut, okay, so if you actually come back to your guard position, and as you do that, you raise the hand up and actually chop to the side of my head, okay, bam. Okay, so she's going to chop at my head in the way that an untrained, untutored, ape-like person might do, raising their hand up to, there's an aeroplane going over, to chop at my head. And as she does that, in the act of, don't actually chop, Sophies, you raise the hand up. As she does that, she takes the point offline, removing the threat of the point, and completely exposes her body as a target. Bear in mind, my weapon is also pointing forwards. Now at this point, I could move in a dead straight line towards the target and attack it, okay? So I could go for here. That might end the fight there and then. There is an inherent danger with just doing that, whether I did a direct thrust to here or a untelegraphed, and we'll talk about that in a minute, untelegraphed cut. The danger is that I do my attack and then in her last moments that comes down anyway. So there's an even better option. As a person raises their arm up, not only do they take the point and the threat away, but they also massively expose that. And you'll notice that from here to there, either with the point or with the edge, I can move in a straight line straight towards the target, which is the thing holding the weapon, so I can wound and I can defend myself in one go. So on guard here. As a person raises up, as soon as their weapon moves away from you, you move into the void and straight there. If you need to, you can bring your hand up as well and follow on through after cutting the arm. So, very, very simple thing. If a person raises their hand up, they take the threat away and they create a massive opening. So thank you, Lucy, she's gone. So if your weapon is already pointing towards the opponent, and bear in mind this applies to swords just as well as it applies to knives, kukris, bowie knives, whatever. If your weapon is already pointing towards the opponent and you're in distance to hit a person with a lunge, what you really don't want to be doing is from here suddenly moving to there, because in that moment you make yourself hugely vulnerable. So, am I saying that you should never attack someone from an open ward, or guardia di alta as the Bolognese would call it, like this? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you come into distance like this, it's incredibly dangerous to suddenly do that. However, if you come into distance like that, it's not so much of a problem, because as you come into distance while the arm's exposed in one tempo, one time, you can launch your attack. That's why when we look at swords like dusaks and messers and things like that, or in fact any one-handed swords, side swords, we often see this open ward or guardia di alta or posta di falcone as a guard position, because they come into distance with the arm raised and it is ready to attack with one forward motion. There is no requirement to move the hand back before moving it forwards, because the hand is already back, it's already cocked and loaded. So coming back to those first two cutting demonstrations, what am I doing there? Quite simply, I'm starting with my hand presented forwards, and for some reason I want to cut rather than thrust. But what I have to do is I have to cut in a way which doesn't expose my arm or hand any more than necessary. So if my point is already forwards, I can either do a push cut, which is quite like a thrust essentially, or I can do a small mulina. What is a mulina? Well, as I've demonstrated many times over the years with swords, a mulina is a circular motion. It's a lot easier to see with a sword because the sword's got a longer blade and it's therefore more obvious to be able to see what's happening with the weapon. But fundamentally what I'm not doing is I'm not taking my hand away from the opponent, away from the target. I'm instead building momentum into the blade in order to give a cut without retracting my hand from threat. This achieves two things. Number one, it doesn't pull the weapon away from, and the hand away from the opponent, so it presents threat out here. But by keeping my hand extended, it keeps the weapon in front of my weapon arm, therefore protecting my hand and arm. So that can be applied absolutely to especially larger knives like this, where you've got enough of a blade on it in order to give a cut in this circular mulina fashion, exactly how we would cut with a sabre or a side sword or dusak or various other swords throughout history. A circular motion around here, which means that we don't have to pull the hand and the weapon away from the opponent. We can have the point forward and in that tempo give one immediate cut, which as you saw is more than capable of cutting through a water bottle and would certainly make a mess of someone's hand or arm or other bits of their body, with a circular motion. So it builds momentum and energy into the blade without having to do this. There is a final advantage of this type of motion as well. When we pull the hand away from the opponent, as well as it losing time because you're moving away from the opponent, as well as it exposing the arm and in fact our whole body to them attacking in that tempo. In addition to that, it also telegraphs to the opponent what we're about to do. So as I pull the arm back here, they pretty much know this is probably going to be a downwards cut. It's not to say it has to be, it could come in from a different angle. But as I do this, the hand has now elevated and moved to a fixed position. Hasn't moved to the side there, hasn't moved over there, hasn't moved down here. The hand has moved up here. So the straight line from here to the target is going to form a downwards cut. In other words, it telegraphs or sends a message to the opponent of what exactly I'm going to do, which makes it easier for them to counter it. With the mulina moving in a circle around here, they don't know where the termination of that's going to be. I could move around here and cut one, I could cut two, I could cut three, but there's not a lot of tell in this motion moving around the wrist of where that cut's going to land. So in addition to it exposing you less, being safer and more direct, it also doesn't give the opponent as much information to work with and therefore is more potent. So I hope that's been useful and interesting. Thanks to my lovely assistant Lucy, my wife Lucy, for helping me demonstrate that. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. I have been Matt Easton. I will of course continue to be. I'm going to be at Fight Camp over the next few days, but you'll probably see some of my social media posts relating to Fight Camp, and I will be filming some videos there with certain other people, Todd, Drakinophil, anyway, we'll see. Any suggestions about anything you particularly want me to film at Fight Camp, or film people you want me to film with, or subjects you want me to film, get posting in the comments down below. Hope I'll see you back on the channel really soon. Take care, folks. Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, folks.